about to start. You can find me in VIP, all eyes on me. Yeah, where the girls are, this is how your night should be.
All right. Welcome everybody to Gogotalx, brought to you by GOGOTIX. I'm your host, as always, Malachi Johns, and today we are joined by a legend in our industry. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Andre Whiteboy Johnson. How are you, sir?
I am great. Thank you for having me. We appreciate it.
Nah, man, I really appreciate you making the time. Thank you so much. So, like I sort of gave you a heads up a little bit at the beginning, the first thing I'm going to ask you, as I ask everybody, is to tell us your entire life story, at least within the entertainment industry. Like, how'd you get into the entertainment industry, and go from there? You got as much time as you.
Well, as most go-go fans know, we started when we were in elementary school, pretty much. St. Thomas More Elementary over in Southeast DC. A couple of us were classmates. Myself, Funky Ned, and Bighorn, John Jones, we were all in the same class, and Foots was a grade ahead of us, and David Green was a grade behind us, but we all went to St. Thomas More and found out that this one played drums, and this one played percussion, this one played bass, and this one played horn. So we decided that, and we all wanted to be in a band, so we decided we would try to put a band together. And that was pretty much it. Got that together, and then started to, practice, go from Ned's house to John's house to our apartment. We lived in an apartment complex, Linda Poland, over in Southeast DC, so we only got to practice at my house one time because the complex wasn't going to have that. Then we ended up moving to Foot's house, Mrs. Mack house, and that's where we stayed, for 15, 20 years. So we were up there for a while.
And so what kind of band was it when you started? Was it go-go when you started, or what was the state of go-go?
No, it was just us wanting to play songs. So we were playing soul music. It was soul music back then. So we were playing James Brown, Cameo, trying to play Earth, Wind, and Fire. That's who we actually were trying to be, Earth, Wind, and Fire. Stuff like that. So those are the songs that we started off playing.
So you were elementary school kids playing James Brown music.
Trying to, yeah.
Okay. That's impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. So then we just went on from playing the songs that we were hearing on the radio to trying to develop our own songs. And that started to come when we got members like Jungle Boogie and Godfather and DC and Benny joined shortly thereafter. We put the band together. So myself, Ned, Bighorn, Foots, David Green, and then Benny, little Benny. He actually joined the band the day that we practiced at our apartment, at my apartment. Benny lived in Linda Poland too.
Okay.
So Benny was walking down the street coming from a trumpet lesson, and he heard the band, and he came over and knocked on the door and said, "Hey, I want to join the band." So we brought him in, and Foot said, "Well, can you play anything?" Benny took out his horn and he played the Top of Hollywood Swinging, Cool in the Gang. No scratches, nothing. Note for note, nailed it. And from that point on, he was in the band.
You got a job. And what was the name of the band at this point?
So we didn't really have a name at that point. We were trying to come up with kicked around a few names. Thesis was one, Connections Unlimited, almost like Experience Unlimited at the time. That was another. then we got this manager, so to speak, guy that was helping us out, and he started calling us the Young Dynamos.
Okay.
So that name came into play, but then he was only the manager for a month or two, and we ended up moving on. And Foots's mom, Mrs. Mack, she ended up being the manager. That's when we was trying to think of new names then, and Foots came up with Rare Essence.
Okay. Yeah, Rob Foley, you know, that works with Charlie is on here, and so he asked about the Young Dynamos. So got a regular historian on here. Gonna ask a bunch of questions. So yeah, there's sort of a recurring theme that I noticed. So a lot of the older bands started when they were very young and got management very early, and you know, that doesn't really seem to happen in other forms of music. Like typically bands are a little bit further along before managers come along. Do you know why do you think that is? You have a theory?
Well, in our case, we needed managers. Like I said, we started in elementary school, so we were 12, 13, 14, 15 years old and knew nothing about the business of music.
Right.
We just knew we wanted to play. So that's how Foots's mom ended up, you know, getting us at this rec center and this school gymnasium and, you know, this Summer in the Parks thing. So that's how all of that came about.
Gotcha. So when did the attention turn to go-go?
So back Funk was always telling us about Chuck Brown, James Funk. He was always telling us about Chuck Brown and how Chuck does this and how Chuck does that, because he was the DJ at the Maverick Room where Chuck was every Wednesday night.
Right.
So he came down and he said, look, I think y'all should try, because what Funk used to do is come downstairs at every practice with about 15 records. Y'all need to learn these. You know, these are the new records that are coming out. And we tried to learn them all. We couldn't learn all them songs though. Right. So Funk said, well, I want to take y'all up to see Chuck Brown, because Chuck does this thing in between his songs that I think you guys can take, or at that time it was we, because he became a part of the band, said, I think that we can take that and use it as a way for us to connect, because the way, I mean, the reason Chuck did it is because he says once you get the people up on the floor, it's hard to get them back on the floor. So he would link one song to the next and to the next. Yep. So what we ended up doing was listening to the percussion break that Chuck played in between the songs, and we mastered that. But then we ended up with Funk being there. We ended up, Chuck was doing it for like 30 seconds to a minute. We ended up doing it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and before you know it, it's 20 minutes. Right. And we still on percussion break, and Funk just having conversations with people out in the audience.
Yeah. Well, so I have a question about that. Was with respect to Funk bringing the records and the new records, was Chuck already playing new music when he was doing, like, was he playing new covers, or was Funk with his DJ mentality and bringing those records, was that the advent of go-go bands playing the hottest song on the radio now, the hottest new records, or was Chuck already doing that?
No, Chuck's probably his most famous cover from back in the day was Mr. Magic.
Yep.
That's how he started every one of his shows.
Yep.
And that's where the traditional go-go beat came from.
Right.
That Mr. Magic. Now, Grover Washington's version was stiff, so right. Chuck swung it.
Right.
And everybody just loved it. But as far as the covers are concerned, Chuck already had original songs before that, because he had a whole album which was about 8 songs. With
Road People, everything was on that, right?
We the People, Blow Your Whistle, and it's a bunch of other songs that were before go-go.
Right.
So all of that, he had original songs, and he was already playing some of the covers that he liked, I guess, of that day.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. So he was playing current music. I just wasn't sure like, the funk thing was what started the because there's a lot of bands that play covers. There's cover bands all over the world, but there aren't that many bands that play almost exclusively current covers. You know what I mean? There's a lot of bands that play covers in a specific genre or from a specific era or specific time period, and they'll throw in 2 or 3 that are out right now. But Gogo is really the only place that I've seen where the agenda is we have to hit the latest song that just came out. That's, you know what I mean? And so I wasn't sure if that's where it came from or not, or if it had already been done.
No. That recently. That's a recent thing there, I believe. When I say recent, I mean the last maybe 15, maybe 20 years.
Right.
And I believe the reason for that is that it's easier for the band to get an audience doing it that way, because if they play the latest version of a go-go version of Beyonce's new record, then half of the battle is won, because the audience already knows Beyonce's new record because they play it 100 times a day on the radio. But then there's a go-go twist to it, which makes them like it even better because you done took it and put it in the music that I like.
Right. Absolutely. Gotcha. Well, thank you. Michael Muse is on here. Says thank you for joining. Appreciate it. We got Kenny Woodley. We got Felix from Chief from the Hucklebucks on here. So you draw quite the crowd there.
Yeah. All right.
So I interrupted your story. So okay, so you're starting to get into you're playing the 15 to 20 minute percussion breaks that you're sort of iterating on Chuck's Chuck's formula. And so then what happens from there?
Well, inside of that percussion break, what Funk was doing was establishing relationships with people. So, I mean, he's having a conversation with people right while if you listen to some of them old tapes, I mean, he just having a regular old conversation with people. Yeah. And that's kind of what helped to draw people in even more, because now that he's calling this person's name over the loudspeaker, for everybody to hear, that makes them popular. So now everybody wants to be that popular.
Yep.
So that's what made the percussion. That's how the percussion got stretched out all of that time. If it was one person, it would have been, we're going to do this next song for this girl over here. Boom. Then we into the next song. But no, we got to do it for her and him and them and all of that. And that just stressed it out even more.
So do you think that he did that as a conscious thing to get that outcome, or was it just like, I just think this sounds cool, I'm going to try it, and just a byproduct of that was?
I think it was just natural for him, because he's always being a DJ, starting off as a DJ. He was a DJ and the MC. That's how most of them started off. So they playing the records and then they talking at the same time.
Right.
So we ended up being the records, and he's still doing his MC thing.
Right. That's great. We got my man Jerron Ayers on here. He's a regular watcher. He said his dad used to play for Rare Essence, Walter Brown.
Stink. We know him.
There you go. All right. Yeah. All right. There we go. Well, so I'm doing a very bad James Funk impression of trying to, and now you impression of trying to talk to people while the show is going on. I'm obviously not talented at it, so my apologies if I'm disjointing the interview a little bit. But I unlike you, I stay behind the guitar, and that's it. So, all right. So when does it start to feel serious? Like, when do you start to realize this is really something? This is not just, for fun.
Well, it was about 77 or 78 when we started playing, and we were doing, like I said, high school gyms and stuff like that, but we were drawing a pretty good crowd.
Okay.
So we were like, okay, well, it's more than just our friends, our immediate friends that want to hear us, So once we started to stretch out and do a little bit more, the crowds got bigger, and that's when we realized, all right, this could actually be something here. Because at first we didn't think that.
at that point, was the band actively involved in promoting your shows? Like, would you guys physically be out there trying to get people to come to the shows, or was it just you were just playing and people just heard about it and popped up?
No, what we would do is when we would play at a rec center, the rec center would promote, you know, make a paper flyer, put it up, you know, around a couple of places saying that Rare Essence will be here. And also a lot of it was word of mouth because by then we were in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So there were high school kids saying, hey, are y'all playing this weekend?
Right.
We tell them, they tell somebody else, and then before you know it, everybody knows.
Gotcha. So, so it's basically in high school, or was it a little bit before that you started really to draw a crowd?
I think it was the bulk of the crowd was in high school. We were kind of gaining a little momentum early on. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that we were so young, but we didn't sound like kids playing.
Right.
So that was kind of interesting. Too. Chuck used to even say that he liked that little man with the big horn, talking about Benny.
Yeah.
Because Benny was so short
Yeah.
and so small, but then when Benny played, he had such a big sound. Chuck like that. And then when you hear Benny speak, Benny sound like he's 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
But you know, he's a short guy with a big voice.
Yeah. So you said that people were, you know, impressed by the musicianship. What do you attribute that to? Did you have a particularly rigorous rehearsal regimen, or that's something I was going to ask you later about how you guys do it now? But back then, what was? I mean, I had Kyrie from Northeast Groovers, you know, that I used to play for on here, and you know, he talks about how they famously used to rehearse in the basement that would sometimes be flooded out and standing up on the cinder blocks so you don't electrocute yourself. And he didn't have an amp; he was playing through a stereo. And but Miss Pratt was like, "No, you're going to rehearse. You're going to keep rehearsing." And they would practice 6-7 days a week and keep going. It was a similar story with you guys.
The exact same thing. Exact same thing. You have to, and the thing is you have to rehearse to get better.
Yeah.
We have to rehearse so we can make sure that we know the songs. So when we play it, we're not messing things up, because nobody wanted to get booed. So it's like, yo, we got to get in here, get this song down. So when we go out there and play it, everybody likes it, or at least recognize it.
Right. So what would a typical rehearsal look like? How would a typical rehearsal go back then, and how does it go now? I'm just interested because I feel like my experience, which is obviously later on down the road with most go-go bands, the rehearsals are fairly lackadaisical and don't really never start on time, never start with everybody in the band being there, and then we wonder why we don't sound good. And so I'm just wondering, from obviously you guys sounded good, so how did you actually structure a rehearsal to get that outcome?
Well, it was, we rehearsed, I think, at 6, from 6 to 8 at that time, be there at 6 o'clock. But the thing was, everybody wanted to be there. We were anxious to be there. So we were getting there at 5:45.
Right.
Because we wanted to get there and play. We want to sound better. We want to learn this new song. We wanted to be, Earth, Wind, and Fire. And the only way to do that is to rehearse like Earth, Wind, and Fire probably does.
Right.
So that was the main thing. We were really, really serious about trying to make it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
go
ahead.
Sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so now the difference is, I think later on in go-go, people don't take it as serious as they probably should, or as they should if you want to make it. If you really want to try to make something out of this, then you have to really put something into it.
Yeah.
You can't just fall into it and hope that something happens. Mm-hmm. That's 1 in a million chance right there. The person that usually makes it is the person that's been working and striving and crying and begging it. That person there usually catches the break, because you've been in people's faces so much till it's just like, well, all right, let me give you a shot just so I can see I see you all the time. Let me give you a shot to see what you got.
Right. I heard somebody use the analogy the other day of increasing the surface area of luck. So the more shots you take and the more the more you put yourself out there, the bigger the chances of you getting struck by the luck is. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Yeah.
that's absolutely right, because more people are seeing you.
Yeah.
As opposed to, you show up over here and then 2 weeks later you show up over there. I mean,
Right.
you're not consistent enough.
Well, so when you're learning these songs in rehearsal early on, are you coming to rehearsal and everybody's sitting there together and learning them? Or was it like everybody learned it at home and then you got together and performed it together?
The songs that we knew that we were going to do, some of us would actually go buy the records, listen to it at home, and come to rehearsal prepared. The songs that Funk would bring down and say, let's learn this, then one person would learn it first, then the next person would get their part, the next person get their part. Like, I mean, we did it one at a time, as opposed to everybody trying to learn the song at the same time, because nothing can really you can't hear what's going on if this is playing and that's playing.
Yeah, sounds like a bag of cats and silverware being
right
around somebody's head. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess back then, I mean, just like you alluded to, the challenges is that you would have to buy the album to listen to it, and so it always amazes me now that musicians will, I mean, I haven't been in DC in 5 years, but I'm assuming it's probably the same. Musicians will show up to the rehearsal and not know the song, and you could just pull it up on YouTube or Spotify or something for free, and they still don't take the time to learn the song in advance. So that's interesting. Yeah. So okay, so we're getting past high school, and I wanted to touch on one thing. You said you wanted to be Earth, Wind, and Fire. So I want to try to put that in context with the Go-Go. So you mentioned that you wanted to be Earth, Wind, and Fire, and that was before the Go-Go really came in. Once the Go-Go started to come in, was it still we want to be Earth, Wind, and Fire with the Go-Go swing and the Go-Go percussion, or was it?
Well, yeah. Well, what I mean by wanting to be Earth, Wind, and Fire, we wanted to be a self-contained band, which they were. But they also had the theatrics with them. They had the lights, they had the outfits, they had the smoke, and they had, they ended up working with David Copperfield, and you hadn't seen that before. Right. So we wanted to be that because they were extremely successful doing that. So we figured, and then you had George Clinton out there with the Mothership and all his break off groups that he had with that.
Right.
So everything back in those days was about the presentation and about theatrics, and not just you up there playing a song, but what else is going on the stage. So we wanted to do that same thing. So that's why when we would play the Washington Coliseum back in the day, everybody's in white tuxedos. You see, we got bring in some dancers sometime. One time a few times we had a guy up there on a unicycle, just riding back and forth across the stage. I mean, it looked like the circus up there.
Is there a video of that anywhere? I have not seen that video.
You know what? It got to be a video out there somewhere. I know I saw some still pictures of it, so it has to be a video out there somewhere.
All right, so if anyone knows where to find video of the guy on the unicycle with Rare Essence, please send it to me so I can post it on GOGOTIX. I need that video. So for people that don't know what that means, what do you mean by Earth, Wind, and Fire was a self-contained band?
So they had a percussion section, they had a rhythm section, they had a horn section. They only had one keyboard guy, but this guy had like 9 keyboards around him.
Right.
And then they had their whole production staff. So I think the production staff was at most of the rehearsals, because they were working things out at that time. On this particular song, we're going to do this. On this song, we're going to do that. On this song, this happens. So all you need when you going out there to present yourself, you need all of that.
Right.
So that's what we were doing.
Gotcha. I wasn't sure if you meant self-contained in that they write all their own music, because some artists don't write all their own music. Was that something that was important to you guys early?
All of that's part of it.
Yep.
It was important to us because we had some really creative individuals. Godfather is probably one of the most creative guys that we've ever had.
Yeah.
But between him and Funky Ned and Jungle Boogie and Benny and Funk and all these people here, ideas are flying back and forth all the time. So it almost was kind of, it was getting difficult to corral all those ideas because everybody wanted to present something, which is great. That's a good problem to have, that everybody wants to contribute and everybody has an original song. It's just trying to get everything in the lineup. That's it.
Gotcha. So at what point and why did you become Whiteboy?
Well, I was Whiteboy early on, like in the 70s. And that's mainly because a lot of the music that I was listening to was pop music, which was white music at the time. So Fleetwood Mac, Aerosmith, the Eagles, Kansas, all of those are guitar-driven bands. So the guitar is way out front. So what I would do is just learn those songs, even though we weren't going to play them. But I would learn a lot of those songs because of the guitar, because I liked the way it sounded, and I wanted to play some of those licks during the show, but that we weren't playing that type of music.
Gotcha. Yeah, I always thought it was interesting as a guitar player that, this is a music that was created by a guitar player. That I would say the next luminary down is you, who is also a guitar player. And the sound guys never want to turn us up. We can never hear ourselves. We don't get solo. Well, rapper gave me a lot of solos, more so than most guitar players. But I always thought it was funny that the guitar players in a guitar player invented music are always second class citizens. But because I wanted to ask that question because a million people have called me like Whiteboy, obviously throughout my life for obvious reasons, but not even just calling me Whiteboy, but like thinking I was you. And I was like, you do realize that Whiteboy is not white, right? Like, no, like, and then when rappers started calling me Reds, then people thought I was like, I'm not old enough to be Reds from Reds, and the boys like, I'm kind of young,
Right. So every time somebody says that, and I'm around people that don't know, because they always look at me like, why is he calling you white? I was like, that's a stage name. Every time somebody says that, I have to explain the name. So I've gotten used to it now.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that's good to know. So I think I might have digressed and gotten lost in the chronology. We're at high school. We've moved past high school. You're doing the, you're doing the, I guess, 5 to 20 minute long percussion breaks, and it's becoming serious. At what point does rehearsals become like rehearsals? Like this is, we're sort of running the town right now. And how did you know that? Like what happened that let you know that?
It took us the actual band members a while to even figure out how popular the band was. We knew that there were a lot of people showing up. We knew that they were paying to come in, whether it be $1 or 75 cents in a canned good, whatever it was. We knew that, there were a lot of people coming. but we didn't realize the magnitude of what we were doing at that time. And it's probably good that we didn't, because then, you know, egos would have probably spiraled out of control.
Right.
But it was probably during the early 80s that we really realized, you know what, we are pretty good, and we are, you know, popular. But we still didn't take it too serious. That part, we didn't take that part too serious at that time.
Right. Well, and what was it that let you, that sort of, you know, let you know that it was something was happening?
Well, when we were out and people would recognize us, you know, not just our friends, but people that we don't even know, they would recognize and they would speak, and or they would stare because they don't know what to say. It was things like that. And then when a lot of people that we knew and didn't know, we used to advertise with the globe posters on the lampposts. When they started taking the posters down and taking them home as souvenirs, because our name was on it, that's when we realized, okay, well, I guess we are, you know, we are pretty popular here.
Right.
And people want to have it.
Right. Well, so you mentioned that you know, you had this sort of cadre of talented guys in the band. At what point did you guys start really writing and recording?
You know, we well, coming up with new original songs, that was early on. That was very early on. So that might have been 70. As a matter of fact, it probably started from the beginning, because the first gig we played was at Linda Poland Rec Center, where we used to live, and my godmother was a part of this social club, who used to do kitty cabarets. And my mother told her, hey, Andre and them got a band, maybe you want to get them to play at your kitty cabaret. Now, I thought she was trying to be funny, but she said she was being serious about it. So my godmother said, okay, cool, y'all can play. So we played at Linda Poland Rec Center. We only knew 2 songs. Ned made one and I made the other. So we played those 2 songs back and forth for about an hour.
Wow. How'd that go?
Well, the kids didn't really know what was going on. They were just in there, they dancing, and we couldn't really tell what was going on. We just knew, okay, song number 1, song number 2, back to song number 1, song number 2. We just kept going back and forth.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, when did you start recording and putting music out?
Well, we wanted to record somewhere around 78, 79, but we knew that we still had some rehearsing and some developing to do to make a real record. So in 1980, we went to Sigma Sound. Chuck Brown produced the first record, Body Moves. As a matter of fact, Chuck was producing. There were 4 songs that we recorded in that session, and that session tape was all over. As soon as we got back from Philadelphia, the session tape was all over the street. But it was Body Moves, One on One, Get on the Wagon, and Good, which Chuck wrote. The other 3 we wrote. So we wanted to get in the studio and get those, because that was going to be the first 4 songs from an album from us. But when that tape got out, you know, we got distracted and we finished Body Moves and finished Good, and we just let the other ones go, and we ended up releasing Body Moves in 81.
Okay, gotcha. And so you said you recorded in Philly?
In Sigma Sound in Philadelphia, yeah.
And why did you decide to do that? Was that your decision, or was that Chuck's decision as a producer?
No, that was Chuck. That's where he recorded Bustin' Loose.
Right.
And then everybody from Philadelphia, the OJs and McFadden and Whitehead. They had another group at that time. Everybody from Philly was recording at that place.
Gotcha. And so, do you think that where bands record for the last 20 years or so, do you think that has an impact? I mean, do you if just talking to Tony, I had Big Tony on a few weeks ago, and he was talking about that, that a lot of the early stuff was recorded in it was either Philly or New York, I can't remember. But a lot of it seems like at least a decent amount, and obviously, Sardines and Pork and Beans were produced by Rick Rubin, and a lot of the seminal go-go records, that are still, kind of monumental to this day, were not recorded in go-go studios, if you will. How much effect do you think that has?
See, I don't believe that it was anything having to do with a go-go studio, because I'm not even sure what that is.
Yeah, I put it in air quotes, but I mean,
okay. Yeah. Okay. But as long as you got as long as the song is very well recorded, mm-hmm. Well produced and well mixed, mm-hmm. it doesn't matter where it's recorded. So mm-hmm. Chuck knew Sigma Sound because he recorded a whole album up there. So he knew that, and as a matter of fact, the guys that recorded us, the engineers, were the engineers that he worked with on Bustin' Loose.
Right.
So he called and said, "We're coming up on this day, and I want these guys."
Right.
Because he knew them from recording all them songs, and then they knew when he said he wanted a certain thing, they knew exactly what it was he wanted. So he had a team up there to work with.
Right. What do you mean by that when he said he wanted? Like, what would be an example of something that he said he wanted and they would be able to do it?
So when we were recording Body Moves, mm-hmm. there's the hand claps that are in it, in which we had to actually record the claps. Mm-hmm. So the first clap is mm-hmm. straight ahead. So the next clap, because we recorded two different claps, is
gotcha.
So, and if you listen to that record, which is why I love this record until today, if you listen to it, the claps are in stereo. So you hear that extra off clap mm-hmm. is what made that. The engineer knew to separate it without Chuck even telling him.
Gotcha.
Chuck came back in the room and said, "Well, you know what I want to do?" He said, "I already did it." And he had separated those claps, and we had to go in and reinforce them some more, but he knew exactly what to do. Mm-hmm. That I couldn't hear it at the time. I'm fresh out of high school, so I don't really know what's going on. I'm just in there doing what they tell me to do. And once we heard it, and we heard the then I was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." Especially hearing it in stereo, one coming from here and one coming from there.
Nice.
So stuff like that.
Working with Chuck, how important is a producer to the success of a song, you think?
A producer is extremely important, because the producer helps to shape the record, helps to shape the sound and the direction that the record goes in, and the quality of the record. Mm-hmm. You can get anybody to go in and just, say, "I do this and do that." And if they don't really know what they're doing, it's going to sound like a mess. Mm-hmm. Somebody that actually knows what they're doing and knows what to do. Mm-hmm. You don't want to spend a whole lot of time in the studio experimenting. You want somebody to hear it off the break and can go and get it.
Right. And do you think it's important that person not be someone in the band?
No. I don't. It can be someone in the band, or usually the really good producers are the people that are in the band because they know the individuals. Mm-hmm. An outside producer will come in with his version of what you should sound like, mm-hmm. Sometimes that don't work.
Right.
With Chuck being who he was in Go-Go and hearing us since we were little boys, and then Chuck must have been to 10 rehearsals with us with
Right.
body moves, because his thing was, we not going up there on the clock and learn how to play the song. We're gonna know the song before we leave here, and once we press play, you know, we recording. We're not gonna be guessing at nothing.
Right.
So that's
Just
that was the
burning up
important
money at that point. Yeah.
yeah, and that's when you had to go to the studio to record. Nobody had studio in their house. So
Right. Right. Exactly. So
yep.
okay, so you record these records, you put them out, and then how does that go, and what's the next step?
Well, we got the record mastered and pressed up, and we ended up taking the records to the record store. You know, take a box here, a box there, and you know, and they would sell and call back and say, "Hey, we need some more." Take another box and another box.
And you would do this on consignment, or so there was
Yeah.
no label involved. So who actually paid for the studio time and all that? Was that you guys?
Rehearsal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay, so you took money from your shows. I assume you took a percentage of whatever you made, you stuck it away for whatever you needed, whatever you thought
Yep.
that needed to be done. And then you recorded it, and then you press the stuff up, and you took it and you sold it on consignment, and they would give you your money after whatever, however, 30 days or something like that after it's sold, and then you get more, right?
Yep. Exactly.
Wow.
That's
Okay.
exactly what happened.
Gotcha. And was there any radio play at this time, or was that helping the record sell, or?
At first, there was no radio play. This was all, our friends found out we had a record, and they bought it. And then some of their friends bought it, and then their friends bought it. It was shortly after that that WHUR started playing Body Moves.
Okay.
And then it exposed us to a lot more people. So it really got popular after that.
And what year are we in around?
81.
81. Okay. Gotcha. All right. And then I think if I remember correctly from Donnell's interview, he joined in what, 83?
83. Yep.
Yeah. Gotcha. And then were there records between the Body Moves records and then when he came in that came out as well? Or was it
So Body Moves, Back Up Against the Wall, Shooby Doo Wop, which he might be playing on. Shooby Doo Wop came up.
But he was just on sax at that time, right?
He was just playing sax at that time. But there were already a bunch of other records that we were already playing, a bunch of other originals. So we were playing Roll Call, we were playing One on One. We had started developing Take Me Out to the Go-Go, record called To the Beat. I mean, it was a whole bunch of songs that we were already playing at that time. We just ended up not recording those songs.
Gotcha. And were you at this time? Were you playing? How often were you playing? Was this you guys were playing every week, or was this just playing here and there? Or
no. We were every weekend, twice Friday, twice Saturday, once Sunday.
Once Sunday. And how did you find the time to play 5 times a week, rehearse, write, record, and promote music? I find that most go-go musicians just don't have time, or at least they say they don't have time to do all that. So how did you guys have time to do all that?
Well, this was all we were doing. So we had nothing but time. And we had to make it work. So the 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday, 1 show Sunday, and then rehearsal on Tuesday and Thursday. At that time, when we first started, we were rehearsing every day. But then as we started to perform more, we cut it back. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we were doing the rehearsals. And then a lot of the material we started to develop right there on stage.
Okay.
So there were a lot of songs. It's a bunch of tapes out there now where you can hear where Body Snatchers came from. You can hear where Work the Walls and Overnight Scenario and Lock It. You can hear the development of it in some of those tapes.
And would that be like, I mean, it was sort of similar with Northeast Groovers. I mean, obviously I came a little later in the process, but I do remember like us, you know, we play a little bit of a song. We make something up on stage this time, and then we would add this to it next time and add something to it next time. Is that sort of what you mean?
Yeah. The song was just coming together while we were up there live, which we felt like it was the best place to try to do this. Because if we're playing something and the audience is taken to it while we're playing it, then it's like, okay, they like it, we're going in the right direction.
Yeah,
if they stop dancing while you play it, get out of there.
right. You get the automatic immediate feedback, right at the
right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So so at some point you guys are, well, I don't know if you're approached. I don't know, how did the MCA, Uptown MCA situation come about? I don't know how, you know, did you guys reach out to them, or they reached out to you, or how did that go?
No, Andre Harrell saw us at the Apollo Theater.
Okay.
And he came backstage and said, hey, I love this sound. I think you guys are the premier go-go band, and I want to sign you my label.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, well, okay, what label do you have? Because we didn't know who Andre Harrell was, but we knew some of his acts, which were Heavy D and Albie Shore. So as soon as he said, well, yeah, I got Albie Shore, Albie Shore and Heavy D on my label, then we were like, oh, okay, well, yeah, he's real.
Right.
So we you know, had a couple of conversations with him, went up to New York a few times. He came down here to DC a few times, and we wanted him to see exactly what we did. So we took him to a few of the shows. We took him up to Black Hole one time. And
how'd that go?
It was, he was really blown away because it had to be 1,200 kids in there. Well, we were doing it every Saturday, so it's about 1,200 people a day every Saturday. And he saw that we did all of that without any help from outside anywhere. This was all a local thing. So, and when we talked to him, we was like, what we want to do is take this and spread it out there. But it has to be this, because we had a record deal earlier with Body Moves with Fantasy Records.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Fantasy Records signed us in late 81, 82. And they wanted to develop an album, but they had so many ridiculous things in their contract. So we told them, well, no, we don't want to do this. So we ended up walking away from that deal.
Well, two questions. Who else was on Fantasy Records at the time? Do you remember?
I really don't know.
Gotcha. And do you remember any of those, any of the things that were ridiculous in the contract?
So they wanted all of the gigs. It was ridiculous to us. Now, let me say that because we already have our routine. We know what we're doing.
Right.
At least here, we know what we're doing. Right. So they wanted every booking to go through them. They wanted anybody that wanted a radio interview, which I understood this, to go through them. They wanted a tape of every rehearsal that we did. They wanted us to record it on a cassette and send it up to them, which we didn't understand that, because we're practicing twice a week and then we're playing all weekend 5 times. You want us to record all of that and send it up to you? Yeah, right. We need to know what's going on. Like, well, how about you just come here and see what's going on?
Right.
You know? So after that, and then it was some other contractual things that we didn't know, but the lawyer said, no, we can't do that.
Gotcha.
And we ended up walking away from that.
So they wanted to be the exclusive booking agency as well as the record label, which typically is 2 separate entities.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, so it's interesting to hear about the Andre Harrell thing, and I bring this up because I'm not sure that people that a lot of people in GoGo, I'm sure you know, I'm not sure that a lot of people in GoGo know that the typical way that an artist is signed, I mean, even back in the day, is not that somebody just happens to pop up at a show and says, "You're great, I want to sign you." You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, certainly it happened, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but it was like lightning in a bottle, you know, for that to
Right.
happen. However, what I learned through doing this series, because I've always wondered why did go-go bands think this, but now I know it's because I talked to Charles Stevenson, who was managing EU, who basically said
Right.
that EU was you know, what's up, Day Day? Day Day's on here.
Ah,
So John Buchanan said whites, white and white.
indeed.
So you know, Charles Stevenson, who was managing EU, said at the time that you know Seth booked EU at the 930 Club. You know, Seth from IMP 930 Club
Right.
owns 930 Club, runs Meriwether Pavilion. You know,
Right.
booked EU at the 930 Club for Spike Lee's birthday party. It wasn't Spike Lee that booked them; it was Seth that booked them because he was local and knew what they did locally. And since they played there locally, you know, they were there, and Spike Lee saw them and then said, "You guys are great. I want to put you in my movie." Blah blah blah. I interviewed Wink from Junkyard. Wink said we were playing on the buckets on the corner across the street from the club, which I can't remember the name of right now. And this guy kept coming down and seeing us every week. And then eventually he brought Rick Rubin, and Rick Rubin said, "Oh, you guys are great. I want to sign you and bring and record music." And now you're telling me that you guys are playing. Well, what were you doing at the Apollo? How did you get to New York?
So Daryl Brooks
Yeah.
from CD Enterprises, G Street Express,
Yep.
he put together a show with us, EU. I'm not sure if Trouble Funk or Junkyard was on that show. It was one of them, and Biz Marquee.
Okay.
And said, we want to take Go-Go to the Apollo Theater.
Mm-hmm.
And we did 2 shows, did an early show and a late show. So Andre Harrell came to the late show. And he comes up, you know, after the show, and he came back, and we actually opened that show. So he came back and said, "Hey, I love the sound." And I believe the butt might have been out at that time, or it might have just come out.
Okay.
So he was like, "I love the sound. I think you guys are the premier band. I want to sign you guys." So we said, "Okay, cool." We ended up signing with him. But that didn't work out. At the same time he signed us, he hired Puffy. Did he? He hired him. He was here going to Howard at the at the time.
Yep.
So that all kind of connected together.
Gotcha. Well, so real quick, I want to dig into that a little bit. So there's a few different stories. So I talked to Donnell. Donnell's version of the story is that, which I was not expecting, that Donnell felt like he was being arrogant and messed the deal up. But I talked to Bo Sampson as well. And well, first of all, I got to get on Daryl Brooks because I had Daryl Brooks on a couple weeks ago, and he never even mentioned this concert. But so then Bo Sampson said he thought it was because Puffy was in hot water at Uptown at the time, and that was really the reason that the deal fell apart. So before we get to why it fell apart, what was different about the Uptown MCA contract that made you say, "Yes, let's do this," than the fantasy contract? What gave you more?
Well, we were a few years older in the business, and we knew exactly what we wanted at that point. So when Andre said, "I want to sign you guys and put your records out," that is exactly what we wanted, because we had DC, Maryland, Virginia, and the Carolinas pretty much locked up with our distribution network at that time.
Right.
So we were like, well, if we want to hit the rest of the world, we're going to need a major. And it saved us the trouble from having to run to New York, because that's where all the major labels were at that time. And if you want a record deal, you got to go to New York. So we were up there, met him. He said he wanted to do it. So we did it. The problem came in is when we were recording, we were sending songs up, send them up 2 or 3 at a time, because we didn't want to bombard him with 10 songs. So we would send 2 or 3 at the time. Do you like this? Do you like that? Everything we sent up, he did not like. Everything. So then he said, well, look, I want to get a producer to put with y'all. And we were like, okay, cool. You know, we'll do that. But then the producers were coming in doing more hip hop stuff or more R&B stuff. And there was no go-go around. So we were like, well, that's not what we do.
Right.
We need it, you know, we need to be able to do what it is we do. And he was like, well, I'm trying to get you on radio across the country. So we were like, okay, well, we do pretty good in our area. Now, we don't know that that would have held us up, or if that would have helped us at that time, with us being different from everything else that was on the radio. But we felt like we had a big enough following in our region where we didn't really want to sell out like that, because that's the way we looked at it.
Right.
If we were recording, if we were playing go-go for 10 years, and then all of a sudden we switch and we are R&B band, and it's like, what are y'all doing?
Right.
You know, we probably wouldn't have been able to come back here.
Right. So why do you think it's so hard to make go-go records that people outside of DC like, but that people in DC like too?
So if we had kept that formula from years ago when we made Body Moves is a go-go record, but it could also pass for R&B. So if a record like that is promoted and marketed across the country, we feel like people will take to that record because it's a very good sounding record. What's happening lately, and I'm gonna say over the last maybe 20, 25 years, there's less effort, the way I see it, less effort going into the writing and producing of the songs to make sure that they sound good. Not only good to people here, but I mean, not only to good people outside, but people here as well. You want to be able to put your best foot forward. And I don't feel like go-go as a whole has been doing that lately, because I think a lot of it is just emphasis on, you know, let me get a couple of gigs here and I'm gonna grind it out, as opposed to trying to really make it. I mean, when we were doing things back in the 80s and 90s, we were actually trying to make it. We hired record promoters and publicists and video directors and video producers and video distributors. We did all of that because we actually tried.
We meaning Rare Essence.
Rare Essence did, yes. Gotcha. Rare Essence did.
I want to highlight that because a lot of people I run into a lot of musicians in go-go and people in go-go that feel like all they're supposed to do is play music, and somebody else is supposed to pay for and take care of everything else. And I'm talking to Whiteboy of Rare Essence right now, and he is telling you, you don't gotta listen to me, listen to him. That's not how it works. Rare Essence paid for all that.
We paid for all that because we knew that getting a record deal is hard, and then even getting a record deal, they should call it a record loan, because they're loaning you the money. And before you can collect any, royalty off of anything, they have to get all of their money back, and then they get the lion's share of everything else. So,
and you have to pay it back to them at your royalty rate, not like, so if you make a quarter off of each album, you have to pay them back the entire amount of money that they loaned you and anything you accumulated over top of that at a quarter per record, not $17 or whatever the
Right.
CD is selling for.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to sell, 10 times as many to almost to get even with them.
Right. Exactly. So why do you think that mentality has changed to be, because that's sort of what the mentality was when I got into I started playing in 92. So I'm obviously, a little bit later to the game. I had missed all of the, the heyday of the 80s and the, and sort of, I was around, obviously I saw it, but I didn't really comprehend what was going on. I was a teenager. I didn't know what was going on. Why do you think that changed? Like what was the catalyst for that change in goals, I guess?
I'm not sure why. You mean why people are not trying as hard?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why. I think some of it had to do with if you could play a good song and a decent pocket, you almost had instant success.
Mm-hmm.
So you could get a gig here or there or there. But for Red Essence, that's never been. That was the goal in the 70s and early 80s, is to try to get a bunch of pop spots around. But at the same time, we were still working on trying to be a national band.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I think people are kind of settle into what it is they think go-go is, and all I guess they don't have the faith in it to be able to go outside of. And there's so many negative people out there talking like go-go ain't gonna never do this and ain't gonna never do, so they probably buying into that.
Mm-hmm.
We never bought into it because we know what a hit record would do.
Right.
We know that when we go to a different city and they've been playing our record, the reaction that we get from that audience there, we've seen that. So we know that it's possible to spread this music not only across the country, but across the world. It just has to be very good, very well produced music, very good written and very well produced songs.
Right. So yeah, I think that's the essence that it all boils down to. You can strip all of everything else away, but if you don't have a song, you don't have anything. We're talking about the record industry. The record industry is built off of songs, but the record industry is different than the party industry, which is what go-go sort of is now. So we got my man Scooby, Frank Marshall on here. Good stuff. Joe Young, old school Queenie, who's a long-time viewer. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Let's talk about that a little bit. So there's the well, I guess I digress a little bit. We never really got to sort of the fall, or I guess touched on it a little bit. The I guess the Uptown MCA just were trying to change you guys too much. So you just said no, we're not going to do that. So then after that, were there any other attempts, or by you guys to sign to another label, or other labels to try to sign you, or from there on it was just we're just doing our own thing?
No, actually, before that, back in '84, we were signed to Polygram Records.
Okay, that's right. I forgot about that. I skipped past that. Yeah.
Everybody else was signed to Island Records.
Yeah.
Because of the movie. Yeah. But we were already in negotiation, already in talks with Polygram Records anyway. And we ended up signing with them because they said, yeah, we want a go-go song. We like the music. We want the song.
Right.
Every time we sent them a song, they didn't like it. So we ended up having to record this record, which is almost a techno record, in order to get out of the deal.
Gotcha.
Because we asked them, just let us out. If we have to pay you the money that you spent in the studio on us, we will pay that. Just release us. Right. They were like, well, no, it don't work like that. We got to release a song on you. So they went in, I think there may have been 3 of the band members, me, Ned, and David Green, who sang the record, that were actually on that record.
Mhm.
A record called Flipside. We released that record, and 7 days to the exactly 7 days later, we asked for a release off of the label, and they gave it to us.
So, but okay. So, why do you think? Because it seems like every go-go band that's ever signed to a major label has had some variation of the same problem. I mean, which is obviously sort of the same variation of any artist that signs with the label. The label always wants. Kato said he doesn't care what anybody says. He loved that song. He loved Flipside. So it seems like every band, be it you guys, Trouble EU, anybody that's ever signed to a major label has had a variation of the same story. The label wants it to be this way, and the band wants it to be this way. I mean, it's sort of maybe sort of a moot point at this period in time because record labels aren't even really necessary
Right.
anymore. But pretend they were. What could be done to rectify that?
What the label has to do is have faith in the record, in the music,
Mm-hmm.
in the sound of go-go.
Mm-hmm.
They never had faith in the sound. They knew that the bands could play
Mm-hmm.
live because they've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case with Andre Harrell, he saw the massive audiences that we were drawing.
Mm-hmm.
So he knew that he had something,
Mm-hmm.
but he wanted to change it. I'm not sure if he wanted to make it better
Mm-hmm.
or changing it to something that he could identify with more because then he would have a better handle on it.
Mm-hmm.
But we just told him, and not to sound arrogant, we just told him, no, we just need y'all to market and promote.
Mm-hmm.
We know how to produce our own records. We know what to do on this end. We
Mm-hmm.
just need y'all to help us out there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the way the record company, the record industry works. They have to be involved in everything.
Right.
And so that's what made that whole thing fall apart. It's just they wanted one thing. They thought they wanted go-go, but they wanted the go-go hip-hop mix. We didn't want to do that because we didn't feel like we had to.
Mm-hmm.
We felt like we really needed to stick with go-go because go-go can make it.
Mm-hmm.
In every other city that we've gone to, even if the people never heard of us before, the first 10 minutes they're standing around looking at it, but at minute 59, they in there partying like crazy.
Right.
So we can win the people over. We just need them to know some of the songs before we get there.
Right. So how would you in today's time do that?
So social media.
Mm-hmm.
Social media is just, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
You put it out there, and YouTube, because a lot of stuff is already out there. So once they hear who you are. Once people discover you, then they go back. It's easy to search. Well, what is this band about? What have they done before? And when you go to YouTube and click in Rare Essence, there's going to be a whole list of stuff to come up. So you can just click and you can get an education right there.
Right. Well, so in your when I book the shows, I asked, in one sentence, what do you think can move go-go to the international stage? And your response was, go-go needs original songwriting, good producers, and a plan that will allow the audience to discover and experience feeling the music live. So as a booking agent, the challenge with disseminating the music, because we've already sort of identified the problem of getting the music out to people in other cities, right? But if you say to play live for these other people because we know you can convert live, right? We know that go, just like you just said. I'm surprised to hear you say the first 10 minutes they're looking, because in my experience, it's been the first 30 seconds. As soon as they hear that beat, it doesn't matter where you are. They're like, man, I love this, you know?
Right.
Obviously, if there's nothing there warming the market up, there's no music in there warming the market up. When I say market, I mean, for anybody that doesn't know, I mean a city, another city. Then you're only relying on the live thing. But the problem is, if you've got a 14-piece band that needs 7 hotel rooms, and and I'm trying to book said band in Sacramento, California, where there's absolutely no evidence to this promoter that anybody's come buy a ticket to come see this band, and said band wants $10,000, which is, I understand there's travel costs, there's all kinds of things associated with that. So back to your point earlier about, and maybe this is not rare essence, but this, you were speaking earlier about you hiring radio promoters, you hiring publicists, you hiring these other entities to try to promote and get the music out there. That's literally money that you're paying out of your pocket to get somebody to try to, get your music to somebody in Detroit, right?
Right.
So for another band, maybe not Rare Essence, but say there's another band that wants to get their music outside of DC, or get their show, get their brand outside of DC. In 2020, would it make sense to, instead of paying a radio promoter, paying a publicist, paying maybe a social media person, that's probably a bad example, but paying any of these other people, would it make sense to say, we're going to take $5,000 from the last 3 months of us playing shows or whatever, and we're going to go to Detroit and we're going to play for a door deal, and we're going to promote the shit out of it, because we know that the promoter's not going to give us $10,000 to come, because they have no reasonable expectation that we're going to sell $10,000 worth of tickets to cover that cost. But if we cover the cost, we know that we're going to convert people, because there's zero chance that anybody will come to a go-go show and not be converted in 10 minutes or less, or an hour or less. Do you think, is that a viable strategy for 2020 to get go-go outside of DC? Do you think that makes more sense?
Well, I think it does make sense, because you have to invest in yourself.
Right.
But at the same time, you got to be careful about where you go, because if you spend that money and nobody comes through the door, lost that money.
Yep. And
there's no way for you to be able to get anything from that experience except for the loss. Now, if it's a show that you're not making a lot of money on, say where you would want $10,000 a performance, you only get $2,500, but there's going to be 5,000 people in that building.
Right.
Then that's a good gamble right there, because what we want to do is get in front of an audience and try to convert them to have them liking us. So the next time we come, we'll be able to get more money, and the people will know who we are.
Right. So
that seems like the way that this should be gone about.
Right. Well, the only thing that I would say about that is that in the scenario where there's 2,500 people, that means that people are there. That means that those people, like, just let's use Rare Essence for an example, or let's use Mambo Sauce, because I don't want to seem like I'm talking about Rare Essence. Let's say Mambo Sauce, which isn't even a band anymore, whatever. So say I'm going to say I want to take Mambo Sauce to Detroit. In order for me to take Mambo Sauce to Detroit and being sure that there's going to be 2,500 people there, means that we're playing with somebody else that's drawing 500 people. And at that point, or a number of somebody else's, at that point, what it becomes is what they call a soft ticket show, meaning people aren't necessarily just coming there to see Mambo Sauce. They're coming there to see all the other people that are playing, and Mambo Sauce is there. And maybe at that point you can convert a few people that next time. But the problem with that scenario is that when I go back to Detroit and I say, "Hey, Mr. Promoter, my Mama Sauce played this show where there was 2,500 people there," then his response to that is, "Those 2,500 people weren't there for you. I'm not paying you that much money to come back." You know what I'm saying? So that, while I don't disagree with that strategy at all, I think that in addition to that strategy, you also have to be going to do your own headlining shows, and which, yeah, you obviously do run the risk of zero people being there. You know what I mean? But that's the risk that every artist in every genre of music takes when performing live. And I can understand why that's not an appealing thing to do when you can make $5,000 or $2,500 just getting up and driving 10 minutes away and playing.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So
Right.
I'm trying to figure out if we can't make records that permeate outside of the area on any sort of consistent basis. Because, I mean, a challenge with the records is also that it's expensive to record a big band, you know? And so somebody's got to pay for that. And there may or may not be a return on that. But if we know that the live experience is, again, almost always, going to convert people, then I feel like, I guess I'm just reiterating what I already said. I feel like that we would be better served spending our money trying to do that, trying to build an audience by putting our best foot forward, which is the live performance versus the recording. But
Yeah. So in today's world, you have the advantage of YouTube. So
yep,
when the promoter is promoting his show, you send him a YouTube clip
yep, that's what I.
to add to you're opening the show, yeah, but you may be able to get some people to remember who you are as
Mhm.
opposed to the headline band that they came to see for real. So
Right,
it's a gamble, but you have to invest in yourself.
right. Gotcha. All right. Well, tell Becky that next time I try to book you guys for something. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. So, in the age of COVID, has the goal or strategy of Rare Essence changed at all? And if so, how that you can speak to, of course.
So we, as bad as we want to get out and play,
Mhm.
we have to, hold tight until this thing really calms down, because you see every time you open up Memorial Day weekend, then all the cases shot up.
Yep.
Still waiting for the results from Labor Day weekend, and
Yep.
I'm hoping that they don't. If if the government had jumped on this early, we might be opening up right now.
Yep.
Kids might be able to go have in class, learning as opposed to online learning.
Yep.
But they didn't take it as serious as they should have.
Yep.
And now they're talking about a second wave coming either next month or in November.
Yep.
So now if that hits, that sets us back another 6 months.
Yep.
So what Rare Essence has chosen to do is just sit still, as hard as it is to sit still, because this is the longest that we've ever been off. This is the longest that I've ever been off. I've never been off from Rare Essence for more than 2 days,
Oh wow.
and it's been 6 months.
Yeah.
So
For more
this
than
is
2 days.
no more than two. I've never been off any more than 2 days.
Wow, that's crazy. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I've just been consistent. I've just been there, but until they really get the vaccine going and get the cases to really calm down, I mean, everybody's hurting, but
Mhm.
it's just we don't see the need in taking the risk of somebody catching. And a lot of my guys are, 40. I'm 50 something. So, and a couple of other guys are 50 something. And,
Right.
Ain't no need in taking unnecessary risk.
Yeah, you're right in the danger zone. Yeah, you don't want to do that. Yeah.
Hmm.
So Fillmore Wax, who's
Ah,
a viewer as well out here in San Francisco. So he said, yeah,
yeah,
sounds like the difficulty of bringing go-go to the Bay Area. Yeah, well, the difficulty of bringing go-go to the Bay Area right now is that the Bay Area is on fire.
right.
But yeah, other than that, yeah, it's definitely the expense, of bringing the band. So I have a question for you, Andre, that I ask for everybody that comes on this show. Do you need a band to be go-go?
Do you need a band?
Yep.
No, I don't think you do. I think Stinky Dink was a go-go artist.
Mm-hmm.
Gogo Lorenzo was a go-go artist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm trying to remember a singer that was just pure. I mean, Michelle Blackwell. She has a record out,
Yep. Yep.
but she was with what band?
What?
I think she was with a couple of other bands.
Subtle thoughts. She
Uh,
had thoughts before that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
mhm. But you don't have to be. And as a matter of fact, it should be more of those type of acts. Shouldn't just be a go-go band.
Mm-hmm.
It should be, a rapper, a singer, or a group of singers, or I mean, traditionally, yes, a band, but I think everything should expand, and
Mm-hmm.
and there are different types of artists that come in.
Gotcha. Well, I think the reason I asked that is because back to sort of what we were talking about the recordings and having the recordings go out before before everything else. Like it's much cheaper and dare I say much easier to record with an artist, even with
Right.
a couple of hired musicians versus getting everybody in the band on the same exact page on what song they like and how they want to do it and what key they want to play it in and being at the
Hmm.
studio on time and all that kind of stuff. So I just wasn't sure if because obviously it's been such a live band dominated genre that I wanted to get the opinions from the people that are significantly more invested in the culture than I am. Is that looked down upon by people? And so thus far, I have not really gotten and not gotten a yes to that question.
I'm not sure that it's looked down on, but like you said, it's been band dominated for so long, and that's the expectation,
Yeah,
is that there's going to be a go-go band.
right.
Um, but if there's an artist out there, a singer that has a good go-go record,
Hmm.
I can imagine that person wouldn't get booked. Um, they're probably quicker than a band because it's only one or two people, and they show up and do their thing and get out the way. Whereas a band, you got to have 10, 12 people, all the travel expenses, hotel expenses, food,
Hmm.
whatever,
Hmm.
production expense.
Yeah.
So it's a single artist is definitely easy to work with.
Well, do you think, looking back, that I feel like personally that was a lot of the. I mean, because there's obviously a lot of talk, and there's the legend of go-go and hip hop being sort of born at the same time or concurrently, and obviously hip hop was shot. I feel like that had a lot to do with it. They were able to take much greater strides into other markets because they could afford to, because it's just a rapper and a DJ as opposed to a 14-piece band. Do you think that had something to do with it?
Well, that probably did, but they also had the advantage of being in New York, which
True.
is where every major label was.
Right.
So as opposed to coming down here 300 or 400 miles to check this band out, they
Yeah.
could go downtown 20 or 30 miles to check this the DJ and the MC out and see
Right.
what they're.
Right.
So I feel like go-go has lost a lot because of that, because of just the geography of everything. With us being way down here, them being way up there, and
Mhm.
them figuring like, I don't even feel like going to DC to check this band out. Well, let me go over here to this club and see this DJ and this singer, and that they probably won that way.
Gotcha. Well, what do you think? What do you think about now about the rappers in DC, like, or from DC? You know, like your Wale's, your Shy Glizzies, your Zan Mans, or Rico Nasty. Any of these younger rappers? What do you think they've? How do you think they were able to figure out how to spread their music and tour and get their music out, but the bands weren't? What do you have any insight?
Social media, a lot of them are social media.
Mm-hmm.
That they got 10, 20, 50, 100,000 people following them.
Mm-hmm.
And they chime in, and the record companies and production companies now, that's what they look at. That they want to know how many followers you have.
Yep.
So they'll know who they can promote to, or how much work they have to do to get you, to where, you got hundreds of thousands of followers that want to see you from around the country.
Right.
So that's I think social media is plays a big part in that.
Gotcha. Day said you're the oldest out of our bunch. I should probably let that one go, but just smack him at rehearsal next time. So Cato has a question. He wants to know, what are your thoughts regarding the pickup steps that everyone in the music industry seems to be going towards streaming performance? And do you have any thoughts or ideas on how to get this new generation of youth into loving go-go the way we did when we were young?
So the streaming go-go, that looked like that's going to be a part of the go-go industry going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually, the way I'm looking at this, that's actually a really good thing.
Yep.
We're doing a new live stream this Saturday. You can get tickets at Stage It.
Yeah, no, I was gonna get there, but
the thing is that when we did the first stream back in March, we promoted the fact that, okay, we're gonna be live since you're stuck in the house. We coming live to you in your living room.
Yeah,
we had over 50,000 comments from people around the country.
Yep.
Saying, "Oh, I'm getting ready. I got to get my drinks ready. I got to get my food ready. I'm tuning in." And while we were playing, they were checking in from Texas, from LA, from New York, from Florida, from the Carolinas.
I checked in from LA. Yep, I did.
so all of that makes it that helps us to know that, okay, we have audiences in other people. I mean, in other cities. We just can't get to that audience. But now with streaming the concerts, we can.
Right.
You can get to, you can have a party right there in your house. It worked so well the first time because I believe since everybody was stuck in the house, they wanted to just, release some tension that, from just being trapped. But I think that's where we're headed. Mm-hmm. And I think even after everything opens up, I think we'll still be doing that.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I mean, I think the whole industry is going to, and I agree with you 100%. The only thing I would say for anybody else, not you guys, but for anybody else that's watching that is in a band that may be doing a live stream, is that I think bands need to be cognizant of the fact that when you're playing in a club, that beat is automatically going to make people react.
Mm-hmm.
When you're performing on a live stream, you need to provide something that's visually interesting as well as just musically interesting. And as some of the live streams I've seen have just been people standing behind their microphone stands and maybe looking at their cell phones and singing a song and rapping a song like we do in the club, because you can get over and do that in the club. But I think that when you're on screen, and especially in the context of what we're speaking of, trying to spread this music out, and you're trying to get to somebody in California and New York or whatever to say, this is cool, I like this, I want to see them when they come to town. got to figure out how to make the stream a little bit more visually interesting than they have been. Not you guys. I mean, I know you guys are the kings of visually interesting shows, and just like you were talking about earlier. So but I think that there are a few other ones that I've seen that I think that's something that needs to sort of be worked on. So this is something, Cato's the second question, which is kind of near and dear to my heart too, and I won't keep you too much longer. I appreciate you taking this much time. Do you have any thoughts or ideas on how to get this new generation of youth into loving go-go like we did when we were young?
Well, I believe it needs to be some people in their age bracket promoting and performing go-go.
Yeah.
Because the 18, 19, 20-year-olds ain't gonna come to see us because their parents are probably gonna be there.
Right.
And very few people want to party with their parents. So it's like, now if it's somebody that they look up to and they can identify with in that age bracket that's doing really good, then I think that'll help to grow the go-go audience. But there's been such a disconnect for the longest time till it has to be somebody really, really, really good to bring them all back, or to really bring that interest back. Because right now, the core audience at go-go is the old school audience.
Yep.
It's the 40-year-olds, the 50-year-olds, the 60-year-olds. We get at least 3 emails a week about us doing 50th birthday party.
Right. Yep.
So if somebody in their demographic, whether it be a band and there's a few bands, a few of the bounce beat bands, TOB, TCB, they're still doing their thing.
Yep.
But in order to be able to really get the audience, the younger audience, involved in it, it has to be more people like them involved in it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I've been that's one of the reasons for the show is to try. I had Lil Chris from TOB and I had TJ from New Impressions on here a little while ago. It's one of the points of this show is to try to disseminate the right information to that age group. I mean, questionable whether any of them are watching or not, but hopefully somebody's but that's my goal. That's what I want. I want them to watch it and be like, oh, well, that didn't work for Rare Essence, so let's try it this way, or this did work for Rare Essence, so let's do the same thing that we did, or Trouble Funk or whoever, or anything along those lines. So back to sort of the streaming thing. So you have something coming up this Saturday. So let everybody know what it is.
Yeah. So we're doing a 45th anniversary celebration. Is not the reunion. We had to push the reunion back because MGM. We were doing it at the MGM. That's not open. So we had to push it back a year to September 18th, 2021. But since we had that date, we wanted to do an anniversary concert. So we're doing an anniversary stream. And along with that, we're releasing the collaboration that we have with Snoop Dogg, song entitled Hit the Floor. So the song and the video will all be released at this virtual concert that we're doing this Saturday. And this is a full-on show. This is us on stage, lights, video walls, smoke, sound, effects. We got everything going on in this show.
Just what I was
not just standing around.
I wasn't directing that towards you guys. I was just saying.
No. I get it, but we wanted to, because the first stream that we did was almost like a rehearsal,
right?
Yeah, because we were in kind of a rehearsal spot, but we played the show. Yeah. So this time we wanted to just step it up a bit.
That's awesome. Well, I know that where the tickets are available, if to make it easier, we have the listing up at gogotix.co. You can just click the button and go right to Stage It and get your notes so that you can. It's a little bit weird for everybody. Stage It does their ticketing a little bit strange, where you buy a certain amount of notes and then you use those notes to buy a ticket. So just be prepared for that. But it's pretty simple. I did it. I bought my ticket already, so I'm ready to go. I'm ready for Saturday. I'm excited.
All right.
And yeah, anything else you wanna let the people know about?
Well, I mean, we just dying for all of this to be over so we can get back in action, because, you know, sitting at home ain't our thing. You know, we'd rather be out in a club on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever.
Right.
We also want to thank everybody that for the support over the last 45 years, because when I'm looking back at this, that is a huge accomplishment to be able to be relevant for that long.
It's,
you know,
unprecedented.
it's and we feel really blessed, but it's the audience that just keep us going. You know, they constantly, you know, where y'all at, what y'all doing, I'll be there, and they've done that from day one. So we really want to thank everybody. I mean, you really don't understand how that makes us feel to know that people love us that much. I mean, I'm constantly getting, whenever we do play, and somebody will bring their son. My son just turned 21 and he wanted to come see you. I'm like, well, how does he even know our records? Because every day when I'm taking him to school, I'm blasting one of y'all tapes, so he know all the words. You know, so we get a lot of that, and it's extremely flattering. We appreciate it.
That's awesome. Well, Andre, I tell you, I missed the days of randomly running into you at the Annapolis Mall.
Right.
So hopefully I'll get to see you in person sometime soon, in the near future. I see it's getting dark over there. Listen, I really appreciate you taking this much time, and thanks so much for coming in and talking to me, and you know, bringing this knowledge to the people. It's necessary. You know, I think you know, we all need to sort of you know, dig our hands in and do what we can to sort of save our music and save our culture. And thank you for being such a you know, a shining light throughout all these years.
Absolutely, we appreciate it, and we appreciate the work that you're doing, because a platform like this is extremely helpful and it's very knowledgeable, and people need that knowledge. So we appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks so much, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, take it easy.
All right, thanks a lot, Andre. Appreciate it. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. That was awesome. I've been looking forward to that one for a long time, so I'm glad we were finally able to make that one happen. Thank you very much to my producer Tracy for making that happen. Please, before you leave, click the subscribe button and the bell below. The bell will alert you to when new shows are coming up. I have unfortunately had to slow down a little bit on the shows just because I have so much stuff going on, but we do have some coming up soon. I don't even know what they are at this moment in time, to be honest with you. It's been kind of a crazy day, but thank you everybody so much for tuning in. And yeah, please subscribe. Thanks, Cato. I appreciate it. Please subscribe and click the bell icon below. Check out gogotix.co. You can get your tickets for the Rare Essence live stream coming up. And then there's also, we've got other shows up there as well too. So yeah, check that out. And thanks very much. And we'll see you hopefully next week. All right. Thanks, guys.